Hi, you guys. Welcome back to my channel, Life Lessons Learned. And if you saw my previous videos, you'll know that I'm currently talking about the experiences I've had when I worked as a parenting instructor for a major university there in Michigan. So this one I entitled as a successful parenting story. And the reason I wanted this one to be named that, although keep in mind, I've had many successful ones, but this one holds a special place in my heart because this parent actually went from being unemployed to being fully employed, and her daughters, she had two of them, went from failing their classes to excelling in them. So you'll want to keep in mind that these classes were anywhere between 10 to 14 weeks long, depending on the curriculum that we were teaching at the time. And I was so happy to see the immediate success that this family was able to enjoy because of the tips, ideas, and suggestions that she was able to willingly and voluntarily employ within her family unit. So we'll talk about that. Now, I should also say that these parenting classes, we had a physical location for parents to go to at the university that actually was a classroom setting, and that would be anywhere from 10 to 25 or 30 parents in a classroom each session as they're going through that whole curriculum. But we also worked with parents that, for whatever reason, could not get to our physical location. And so we would go out to their homes and they would still do the same curriculum, but in an environment that they were comfortable in, where it was a one on one and we would move at their pace. So you could go to the physical location or we would come out to you. So we tried to make these parenting classes as accessible to as many parents that were, looking to take the classes. And again, the classes were not, there was no fee for them because the university had a government grant to do these classes so that we would be able to assist parents to learn positive communication skills and techniques that they can use in their family unit moving forward. So this particular mother was a mother of two. She had two daughters. One was 5 and one was 7. And so the 5-year-old was just in kindergarten. Well, I shouldn't say just in kindergarten. Kindergarten is an important class, grade, I should say. Teaches you your colors, your shapes, your sounds, your alphabet, all of that. And the 7-year-old was in the second grade. So, they were pretty young. And of course, we would have to make appointments. I mean, we wouldn't just show up at people's homes. Talk about, hi, parenting instructor. So each week we had a specific time and, to meet with them, and they would be aware of that because it was a time and date that they chose. So again, we worked on the parents from where they were at. Okay, so keep that in mind because it wasn't anything that where we were adding more pressure or more stress to that family unit. They got to choose the date and the time and the curriculum that they wanted to do. So when I first started to meet this mother, I would well go out to her home at my appointed time. I would knock and knock and wouldn't get an answer for the first few knocks. And then she would come to the door and it was just me. So it wasn't like I would be the only one that was coming into her home. It wasn't like it was me and anyone else. So she would answer the door, with her robe on. And, sometimes she would say she was just getting up or she had gotten up and, gotten the girls off to school and she had laid back down, which is fine. I mean, people have that whatever lifestyle that they have. So, of course, I would ask her if it was okay for us to, still do the class that day. And she always said yes. She was like, yeah, I don't want to miss it and that kind of thing. So as I was getting to know her and she was starting to adapt to the information that the workshop and this had for her, she would share some of her information with me. So she did tell me that she had been married and she was non-divorced and her divorce took she took it really hard, because most I shouldn't say most people. A lot of people think when you're married, that is it. It's going to be till death do you part, or you're going to grow old with someone. So she didn't imagine that her marriage wouldn't last, and as a result of that, that put her in a spiral where she was at the point where she was not on aid, not working, and not doing what she felt she needed to do with her girls. So during these talks, she told me that a lot of times she doesn't even get up to get her girls ready for school. She said the oldest one, which was 7, would get the 5-year-old up and she would get her dressed and she would pour cereal for them and things like that. And then the bus with that picked them up came actually stopped there. One of the stops was right in front of their house. So it's not like the girls had to walk a half a block or anything like that. Bus would be there. And the 7-year-old would make sure that everything was ready. And, she would tell the mom that they were leaving now and that kind of thing. And while she was telling me that, she started to tear up because she said, I should be the one getting them up and combing their hair and getting their breakfast. She said, and I just can't bring myself to do that. And I said, that's fine at this point. It's the reason why we're here. The reason why I'm here is to get you to that point and see what we need to do in order to do that for you. So she started to tell me that her girls were failing in school because she wasn't monitoring their homework. She wasn't going to PTA meetings. She was just in a place where she wasn't able to deal with any of the everyday activities that she needed to do in order to do and complete those kinds of tasks. So I told her, and this is my thing, if I'm working with someone and I have to think of something that's outside of the parameters of what my job duties are, if it's to benefit a family and they agree with it, then I'm willing to do that. So I told her instead of with me coming out once a week, I could also call during the week and see, how things were going with her. So what I did is I decided to work with her to develop a list of things that she could begin to do that were small steps for her to move in the direction that she wanted to move with her daughters. So one of the things, and you have to remember now, we're starting with where they're at. So since she had told me she wasn't able to, get up on time to get her girls ready, the first thing I said that we should focus on is her getting up, um, in the mornings to, do her girls' hair and make breakfast. So that seemed like a tall order, but it's not like she's getting up and then having to catch the bus to where they're at. She's in the same home with them. She just needed to like set an alarm or, get ready to be up to do that. And she said, "Yeah, I want to do that." And I can tell by her body language, by her facial expressions, that she was ready to begin to do that. And of course, she had asked me, some questions about me and my life. And, she found out I was divorced and had 3 girls. And she was like, "Well, how did you get to that point?" I was like, "Mine wasn't like yours. I wasn't devastated when my marriage ended. Okay. I was elated." I mean, if you guys saw the red flags in my marriage videos I have here, you'll know what I mean by that. And it's not to downplay or negate my ex-husband, but it was like what wasn't working wasn't working. Okay. So, so that was our first step. And because I was calling her in between my actually going out to meet with her, I was able to hear how she was progressing with these little steps. So, the first time we put that down as one of her goals, she, when I went to her house for that next appointment, she was like, "You're not going to believe this, Sherry. I actually got up like 3 days out of the week and I was able to, get my girls ready and everything." And she said, and my oldest one was like, she asked her mom, "What are you doing?" Because she hadn't done that, been doing that. And she said she told her daughter that she was looking to, do the things that she needed to do for them to make sure that they got to school on time and that they were, the clothes were matching and that kind of thing. And she said, "And Sherry, that just made me feel so good to see that I was the one that was doing that." And I said, "Good, good, that's good. So we'll let you do that for a while, and then when you're ready for the next step, we'll take a look at that." And she said, "What's the next step?" And I said, "Well, again, we have to realize where they're at." And I didn't want her, if you have people do too many steps in a short time frame, then something would fall off. And the next thing you know, they're saying they can't do any of it. So I had to keep that in mind. But I told her, I said, what I would like for you to do next is when they do have projects or things like that or homework, I just want you to think about taking a look at their homework and seeing if there's something that you can assist them with. Now, of course, she would be able to assist them with it. They were in second grade and kindergarten, so it's not like she didn't know her colors or numbers or alphabet. So she said, "Yeah, I can do that." I said, and you won't be stressed out, doing it?" And she was like, "No, I won't be stressed out." So I could tell she was ready for everything that she was saying she wanted to do. So of course I call, um, a couple of times before my next appointment with her, and you guys, she was almost like too elated. She was like, "Actually, Sherry, I hate to tell you this, but it was actually fun for me to work through my kids', homework with them." She said, "Wasn't she said she was disappointed at the level that they were at because they weren't that's the one that was in the second grade. Her reading wasn't where it should have been because, of course, her mother hadn't been assisting her and making sure she did homework or anything like that. But she said, but I can see where, what her thought processes are, and I can help her with that, and I can let her know, where her missteps are." And I was like, "Yes, that's what we're saying. That's what parenting is all about." So now I'm excited. I'm like, this is really going to work out well. So after a few weeks of that, the next time I went to go visit with her, this lady said, when you go to parent teacher conferences, what do you guys talk about?" And I said, "Well, you talk about your child's progress. You talk about," I said, "usually the teacher will have some kind of goal sheet that they would like your kids so they can say from this semester or from this term, they went from this to this, and this is what we need to do in order to get them there." I said, "But they really are willing to work with you and know where your student is at, academically, and they'll have things and challenges for you to work with them." And she said, I think I'm ready to do a parent teacher conference. I said, "Do you guys have some coming up?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, we do." And I said, "Great, you should go." And she said, "Should I take the kids with me?" And I said, "Well, sometimes I've taken my girls with me so that way the teacher knows who the heck, first of all, they're talking about. Because sometimes they have so many students, they're like, oh, wait, no, your student is this." But I said, "But if you're able to, if you don't feel comfortable with that and you're able to get a sitter, you can go alone. And that way you can hear what the teacher has to say and they can share everything with you and that kind of thing." So she did that. So now I'm thinking, I don't think this lady really, I mean, of course, the parenting classes would be good for her to do, but she was actually one willing to do everything that she needed to do in order to really make the most of these classes. And I get that from the parents that voluntarily, take our classes. But this particular lady, I don't, I'm not sure if she was court ordered or not. I don't remember now, but I think I want to say she took the classes voluntarily because she just wanted to make a change for herself and her girls. So that was really exciting for me. So now we're going into the fifth or sixth week of our classes. And remember, I'm calling her in between time. And she started asking me, well, first of all, she started sharing with me some of the challenges she was having with communicating with the girls, period. Like, I say period, I'm talking about all together. Okay, so we're talking little kids here. But she was saying that, sometimes, for instance, when her oldest daughter asked her at one point, she noticed all these changes and she was like, "Mom, are these changes going to last?" So trust me, I understand that. And because a lot of times we'll see, parents are going hold to do something, and then as time goes on, it wanes and they get back to their old habits. And she said she understood right then that her daughter was afraid that after we were done with the classes and everything, that her mother would revert back to the way things had been. And she said, and I told her, "Sherry, not only would they last," she said, "we're never going back to the way things were with me and them and just them." So I said, "Okay, good. This lady is ready." So by the sixth or seventh week, she called me and she was like, "I really like what you do and everything." And she said, and I had convinced myself that since I had these, young girls, I couldn't work. She said, "But I think I want to get off of welfare and I would like to get me a job." Now that, you guys, is a major step. And let me say why I'm saying that, because been there, done that, okay? But you, first of all, want to make sure that if you're going to be talking about getting off of aid, that you're going to be able to make the type of income that's needed, so you don't need that program. Now, there are ways that you can wean off of the program as well, because they do take into consideration your income, and they base whatever assistance they're giving to you from that. So that makes sense. And so I told her that she may want to speak with her social worker regarding that and see what rules and regulations she would have to abide by in order for her to talk about going from, weaning herself off of it. So she did that between the next time that I had to go see her, and she told me her social worker had good news for her. They said, of course, they had programs for single moms, and they actually had assistance for them so that they could have assistance when it comes to the cost of childcare, and she would not be like immediately taken off of assistance or anything, but they would work with her so that she could, grow and get to a point where she could be independent. So I was really excited about that. But also during this time, she said, "You know what? You're not going to believe this." She said, "But since that parent teacher conference I'd gone to, and since you've been coming over here and you've been encouraging me to help them with their homework and read to them every night and help them increase their vocabulary," she said, "in the matter of weeks, both of the girls had improved so well that the teachers called her to, ask, let her know that they could see the marked improvement, and they wanted to tell her to whatever she was doing to continue to do that." So that was really uplifting for me to hear, because I was like, this lady gets it. I wish all of my parents in my classes understood, because these are all basic things. I mean, they're simple suggestions. Just begin to get up earlier, begin to, do their hair and make sure that they're dressed properly and that everything matches. And then you don't have to walk them to the bus stop. It comes right to your house. So just kind of, wave to them, could be outside with them, that kind of thing. Little things that she definitely could do. And then the other simple tasks were reviewing and monitoring their homework, assisting them with it, and making sure that they understand what their projects are, and and what needed to be done to complete them. And then the next step was, yes, getting to know the teachers, finding out what the teachers are thinking about them, and how the ideas that the teachers have that can assist them to move forward in their curriculum. So these were all small, and I hate to say small because I feel like there's really no such thing as a small step, because they all lead to the bigger, journey. So, but she was willing to do all of that. And as I said at the beginning of this video, by the time our classes were done, she had applied for jobs, she had gone out to interviews, and she became fully employed. And that was within that 10 to 14-week period that we had with going out to meet her. Now, that would be like amazing in itself, but this happened to be during the time when our grants for the program were being reviewed, and so they wanted to know what some of the success stories were, that we had had during, my tenure there. So, because they were thinking about either increasing the funding or, decreasing it, as you do with anything. And so she actually got contacted. Well, first they contacted our organization to say, "Hey, do you have many parents that would be willing, who, were successful in the program, that would be willing to talk about that and say where they were in the beginning and where they were at the end of the program?" And I said, "Well, let me, call out to a few of them and see who would be willing to do that." So that's what we did. She happened to be one of the parents, and she was ecstatic to be able to assist that program for further for future funding. And she was really ecstatic about how it was able to help her and her family. So that particular parent wound up being featured in the Lansing State Journal for the progress that she made from the beginning of that class to the end of that class, from going to "I can't get up to get my kids ready for school" to "my kids' grades have improved. I know the teachers. I've become employed." Just everything. And the article was just with her and the reporter, so I wasn't, you know, there or anything like that. But she praised the work that I was able to do with her, and how I was able to work one on one with her, non judging, non, you know, being negative or anything like that. She was like, she was really grateful. And she kept saying that it was because of me that her family was able to change the entire paradigm of their lives, because had she continued in that and her girls had continued to go from grade to grade, not being up to par, not being able to meet the requirements for their grade skill level or anything like that, you already know how that story could be. But I told her, you know what? And this is the honest truth, you guys. It really wasn't me. When I first got there, yes, she was saying, "Hey, I can't get up, I can't do this," but she was willing to do all of that. And she was the one that started saying, "Hey, can I meet the teachers? What do the teachers say at the parent-teacher conferences? I would like to get a job." All of that was actually her, wasn't me. So I told her I just happened to be the catalyst that came into her life at a time that she was already ready to make the change, and she only needed the assistance, the support, the techniques, and the ideas as to how she could do that, because no amount of parenting classes in the world is going to help someone that's not interested in what it is that we're sharing. So I wanted her to understand that she did not she wasn't giving herself enough credit for all of the steps that she had to actually take and complete in order for her to complete that journey. So that one was a really good one. And her daughters always, when I would come over, they would like, you're the one that changed my mom. I was like, no, your mom changed your mom. I just, showed her a way to do it. So that is just one of the stories that I love telling. And when people say, well, do you really like teaching parenting classes? You guys, I loved it. I loved all of the things that occurred during that time, except, of course, if you saw my other video, the man that wound up deleting his ex wife, that didn't have anything to do with any advice that I gave him. But um, yeah, that was a great time in my life. And again, what they say, how they say, what you teach, you also learn. So those parenting classes actually assisted me to have better communication with my own girls, to implement the tips, the ideas, and the suggestions that I was giving to the other parents. And it allowed me to be able to really have a good time raising my own girls. I mean, I had so much fun being their mom and seeing them grow into independent citizens of society that are kind, loving, and for the most part didn't get into too much trouble. Okay. And we'll probably, oh, maybe we won't. But yes, so it was beneficial for the parents, but it was also beneficial for me, and as a result, beneficial for my girls. So it was a win-win-win all the way around. And I was so honored to have had the opportunity to do that program. And just to let you know, well, I can tell you now, I don't need to do another whole video, but the way that I got that offer to be a parenting instructor is, I had been taking my girls to a community center. Remember, I was a community leader and everything, and anything that I take my girls to participate in, I volunteer for, so I can see the adults that they're with, their peers, their kids, their environment, and if it's something that I want them to continue in or not. And someone from that major university happened to be coming once a week to one of the programs that I was in, and they were like, "This lady has great parenting skills. Her girls are mannerable, they're respectful, they're not running around like all the other, students are." And so I was approached by someone from the university, and they asked me if I would be willing to be trained as a paraprofessional to teach parenting classes. So that's how all of that came about. I hadn't put in an application. I didn't even know there was such a thing to do. And they asked if I'd be willing to do an interview, and they would go over what I would be teaching and see if it was something that I'd be interested in. And it actually was. And so I enjoyed that. I had great benefits, great pay, and I got to meet great people. So, I mean, you can't beat that with a stick, right? So again, thank you so much for visiting my channel. I'm hoping that you can like, share, and subscribe, and leave comments below as to maybe some ideas or suggestions that you receive from others that allow you to increase your parenting skills, communication skills, or techniques, or giving you ideas how you can improve your family dynamics with your children. or some sticky situations you may have found yourself in, and how you were able to overcome that and how you were able to resolve it. Okay, this is Sherry, Life Lessons Learned. Remember my mantra: knowledge is in the knowing, but wisdom is in the doing. And the learning of any lesson is the application of it. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Thanks. Bye.